We are back, everyone. The On the Line podcast is back. I'm your host, Noel Alberto, with co host Oliver Dixon Jeffer. Oliver, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time. How are you?
Good. It's been a couple of weeks. Obviously, we had the technical difficulties with the editing for the Australian Open podcast, so we couldn't get that one up on SoundCloud. Both busy last week, so couldn't get much going there. But now we are back this week, and we are ready to rock and roll. So Fed Cup week this week for the women, but big event starting tomorrow in Doha. But we'll review some of this week's events for the men and kind of some surprises. But the one tournament that wasn't a surprise is in the Open Sud de France in Montpellier is all French final. Luca Pouille versus Gasquet. Gasquet has been known to do well here, and Pouille once again playing very well in these smaller events, taking home the title against Gasquet in straight sets 7-6, 6-4. But I think the talking point is Pouille's semifinal match against Jo-Wilfried Tsonga. Pouille saved 2 match points, and then Tsonga called it quits. And what I've been reading could be something with the hamstring, and he's withdrawn from Rotterdam already, which is very unfortunate. But good week for Pouille. But you think he can continue to follow this up in bigger events that aren't 250s or 500s?
Well, yeah, he has struggled in big events. I mean, as we were talking about just before the pod, he reached back-to-back Grand Slam quarterfinals back in 2016, Wimbledon, the US Open. Since then, hasn't done too well at either the Masters or the Majors. I think his 4th round at the US Open last year, his best result since then. I know he obviously lost first round to, I believe, Ruben Bemelmans at the Australian Open.
Yeah, he's never done well in Australia anyways.
Yeah. But this is his 5th title in the past year and a half about.
Yeah.
Last year was the only person to win titles on all 3 main surfaces. So yeah, he can really play well with smaller events, and a couple of his wins have come at home and another one here. Obviously, such a shame about that semi-final. Must be devastating to, for Tsonga having been so close to victory and have something like that happen. And obviously now he's actually defending champion in Rotterdam, so it could take a little bit of a blow to his ranking for the tournaments ahead. But yeah, good week for Pouille, good week for Gasquet as well. Obviously, Gasquet couldn't do much at the Australian Open, came up against Federer in the 3rd round. But, after a bad 2017, some encouraging signs, didn't play too badly in Australia. Good run this week. Obviously, big win against David Goffin in the semi-final.
Yeah, bagel in the 2nd set.
Yeah, it's got second set bagel, top 10 win that as well.
Yeah.
Look, his first round was out. He beat Daniel Medvedev, love and free, which is impressive. Tough match after that against fellow Frenchman Herbert, but then a good win over Zumhu in the quarterfinal. So great week for him as well. Obviously not the result he would have wanted, but I think encouraging for him. Obviously disappointment in terms of how Pouille made the final in that last 4 clash. But looking ahead, second seed, 2 comfortable wins before that as well. So both men played well. And looked like obviously straight sets, but still a competitive final, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, bar that semifinal where Pouille was down 1-6, and then Tsonga retired at 5-all. Pouille looked very good this week. I mean, qualifier, Taberner in his opening round, then took it to countryman Benoit Paire, 1-4, and then, straight sets against Gasquet. So, Tsonga was the only one who really posed him trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, I think on his day, Tsonga is probably the best of the Frenchmen around those. Obviously, the one that's come closest to winning a slam, reaching a final. He's been in semi-finals, a lot of quarterfinals since then. So he's clearly the most dangerous, and he was evidently playing very well in that first set. So obviously, you said it looked like a hamstring injury. It is a shame. Let's hope it's nothing serious, because it's so disappointing if it turned out to be something long term as well. I'm sure he'd be devastated, and it would be really bad.
Yeah, it's good. It'd be a huge blow to lose Tsonga. It's so entertaining to watch when he's on fire. But now we move on to the two other tournaments that took place this week, and we had two qualifiers win. Mirza Basic from Bosnia wins in Sofia, and then Roberto Carballes Baena wins in Quito. And we're going to start with Sofia. So Grigor Dimitrov was the defending champion here, withdrew due to a shoulder injury. Stan Wawrinka came into the tournament and then was challenged a bit. I mean, lost the opening set versus Klizan. Looked much better versus Viktor Troitsky, but then Mirza Basic upset him in the semis. And then and the other finalist was Marius Kopel, who was pretty close to winning this as well, as he took on a qualifier, Josef Kovalik. So, yeah, as we talked about before we got on, this was a draw that was quite hammered down due to so many upsets and injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously he didn't win the tournament in the end, but nice to see Wawrinka picking up a couple more wins. Still not that near his best yet, but I think confidence is key and just getting back on the court. But, great week for Basic coming through qualifying to take the title. Obviously with Zumha having so much success towards the end of last season. Good times of Bosnian tennis at the moment. Yeah, obviously other surprises in the other semi-final, unseeded Marius Kopil. Pretty sure that this must be his first tour final. So big week for him. Yeah, first tour final at the age of 27, so huge breakthrough. And, another great week for Josef Kovalik to come through qualifying as well. Just having, Kopil beat 5th seed Robin Haas in the first round, then 3rd seed Jules Muller in the quarterfinal. Yeah, great run for him.
Some going for the 27-year-old.
Basic beat Philip Kohlschreiber in the second round, and then obviously Wawrinka top seed, obviously a huge name in the sport in the semi-final. So great week for both of them, and a tight final by the look of it. So really good effort by both men.
Yeah, I mean, not much really to discuss here, but still very good efforts for Basic and Kopel to make the finals here in Sofia. So interesting. Last year we had the Dimitrov who took home the title with. Dimitrov took home the title over Goffin. So we had two bigger names in this one, and then 2018 throws out two lesser known names. So nice to see some of these lesser known players working their way up the rankings and getting these key points. And now we move on to Quito, where I mentioned Roberto Carballes Baena wins the title over second seed Albert Ramos Vignolas, as we talk about the huge upset and end quote, in the sense that 3-time defending champion Victor Estrella Burgos tested in his opening round. He was the 6th seed against Tomás Bellucci of Brazil, down a set, and then loses to Gerald Melzer in the second round. So we were guaranteed a new champion, and many were favoring either him or the Spaniards to take home the title, and we were guaranteed a Spanish winner, but it was the qualifier, Carballes Baena, who takes it over Ramos Vignolas in the end.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if someone's comes through qualifying to reach the final of a tournament, obviously in great form. But I was expecting, obviously, Ramos Vignolas to win this title, obviously more experienced. But, he hasn't played amazing tennis since reaching the final of Monte Carlo last year. And I think, Carballes Baena took advantage of that. And I believe, we're talking, his first career final and title in the end. So huge win for him. 24 years old, big breakthrough into same in terms of Basic and Kopil. But interesting week. Obviously, he faced a qualifier in the semi-final as well. Andre Martin, who really destroyed Pablo Cuenya Busta early on in the week. So big runs to both of them. Obviously, Carballes Baena obviously win the title, beat 8th seed Nicholas Jarry in the quarterfinal. Beat Paolo Lorenzi, the 4th seed before that. So really solid week. Yeah. Obviously, slight upset, obviously with Estrella Burgos, but he's 37, so maybe Father Time has started to catch up. But I think a big disappointment this week was in terms of Gael Monfils. Had a big opportunity, I believe, in his quarter-final clash, which he lost to
Thiago Monteiro.
Monteiro. I believe he picked up an injury midway through that match, which is a shame because he would have had a real opportunity. Obviously, he's only won one title this year back in Doha, so it's a shame for him. But a big week for Cabela's Baena.
Yeah, and then there's been so much talk with like Spanish tennis and what's going to happen with it because Ferrer is obviously on the decline. Nadal, he's injured right now, but Father Time can only play so long with how Nadal plays, and then we have the likes of Ramos Vinolas, he's 30 as well, and so it's really Carreño, Busta, and now if potentially at 24, Carballes Baena, who are going to be carrying the Spanish tennis torch after Nadal, Ferrer, Ramos Vinolas all call it quits.
Yes, the thing is, so you mentioned Pablo Carreño Busta. He's turning 28 this year, so he's not young.
Yeah, he's not young.
He's young, but not for a tennis player.
Yeah,
there isn't. They've had so many incredible players over the past years. Obviously, Nadal being the highlight, but they've also had Ferrer, as you mentioned, French Open finalist, number 3. Verdasco, Lopez. So many people have been top 30, top 20, and there isn't that many juniors, which is quite worrying, especially considering Nadal obviously won that first French Open title back in 2005, so almost 13 years ago now. How many big titles he won, how inspirational he must be in Spain. For them to be not many notable young juniors is concerning. They have quite a few WTA players, I think, but if I can remember correctly. But yeah, not really many outstanding young male talents, which I think is a concern for such a for a nation that has such a great tennis history.
Yeah, and it's quite something. I mean, look at the top 10 or maybe top 20, not a single Spaniard there. And you see some of the likes, you see a lot of more Asian countries like making their way through the juniors. We have some from Taipei, Korea. So Chung, even though he's not the old, very young in tennis, 21, 22, right?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, but we have guys who are like 16 or 16, 17 years old from Korea, some Japanese athlete, juniors, Chinese. Like the top rank right now, top ranked junior from Spain is 25th. So that's quite something to say, especially maybe that's why Nadal and Uncle Tony wanted to get the academy going to try to build up more of that Spanish tennis interest.
Absolutely. I mean, if you have a look, there's obviously lots of other countries. Obviously, France. Can't think of any names, but I know there's a few about as always. But it is, and I've seen it discussed on Twitter and a few articles. There's a notable drop in the number of Spanish players, so maybe young like Spaniards are pushed more, especially like in terms of men. This is a push maybe toward football now or something, or other sports. I'm not sure, but yeah, there's considering if you look at the juniors draws, like you said, then there is a rise now in I think Asian players. I think because it's become big out there. Obviously, obviously more events out there, more TV. I think maybe that's where there's going to be a big surge. Maybe less away from Europe, but it's very notable with Spain, especially. There is a real drop.
Yeah, looking at the girls' juniors, not a single Spanish player in the top 50. So it is quite something for Spanish tennis to not have that many juniors in the top of the rankings. But now we move on to the big tournament this coming week. It's Doha, Qatar Open. Karolina Pliskova, the defending champion. So Caroline Wozniacki, Simona Halep are in contention for world number 1 once again. with Halep must reach the quarterfinals to have a chance to take the world number one ranking from Wozniacki. And so, quick dissection of the draw. So, Wozniacki opening round. I mean, she has a bye, but her opening match either against Tatiana Maria or Karina Withofts should be fine there. But then potential third round clash with Maria Sharapova. So that is the one everyone will be wanting to see.
Can we just appreciate that Sharapova's opening round clash is against Monica Niculescu, though?
Oh, yes.
I mean, yeah, that Wozniacki-Sharapova clash should probably happen. I know Rybarikova did beat Sharapova in Moscow last year, but that was right after Sharapova come off her title run in Tianjin.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think if that happens, I think it'll be maybe a bit closer, but I think it'll be a similar story to when Sharapova played Kerber at the Australian Open. Kerber just at a few matches ahead in terms of and conditioning. Obviously, Wozniacki still going to be on a high from her Australian Open victory. So, yeah, I mean, but it's a big one. They've had some great. Haven't played in a long time. I think nearly last time they played was Madrid in 2015.
Yeah, quite
a lot of
3 years.
Yeah, that was a tight, good match. Sharapova won. So you had a tight match at Singapore back in 2014. Wozniacki won. Tight US Open match, which Wozniacki won. Quite a few other tight matches. So yeah, it could be an interesting encounter should it happen.
Yeah, and then continuing on the draw, Bernarda Pera, Johanna Konta once again.
One. I think a chance for Konta to maybe get a little bit of revenge, builds up some confidence. Hasn't been in the best run of form. She should have won every match, but she did win every match in the Fed Cup this week in the playoffs to set up a World Group 2 playoff tie for Britain.
Who did Britain play?
Sorry?
Who did Britain play in?
It was the playoffs, so he played different teams.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, the World Group zone. So I believe he beat Hungary in the final.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know we played Estonia earlier this week as well.
Oh, okay.
Looking at that, I mean, Kerber in the third round, but if she was able to beat Pera, obviously Suarez Navarro, that could be dangerous, but she may be able to pick up a couple more wins, which could help her confidence.
Yeah, most definitely. So this could be the Joko revenge tour. I mean, just one win is good enough for the revenge, but we shall see how Konta fares here in Doha. It's a second section of the top half. Alina Svitolina, the third seed. The other seeded player that has a bye is Yelena Ostapenko, who we know sometimes can be in and out of it in these events. But I think I'm looking at Gergis Safarova as probably the first round match to watch.
Yeah, that's an interesting part of the draw. You got them two facing off, and then the winner of that faces Stritkova Krunic. That could be a very fun and interesting section of the draw. Obviously, Petra Kvitova in here as well. Obviously, good week in Fed Cup last couple of days. And
St. Petersburg title
last week. Yeah, won the title there. Very impressive tennis. So she could be a big danger. She could face Svitolina in the third round, which would be an interesting match.
Yeah, and then we still have Sarenko and Buzarnescu to potentially take on Ostapenko as well. I think Svitolina should be fine, though Marketa Vondrousova does offer some kind of worry for Svitolina, but I think Svitolina should be the favorite to get out of here. So bottom half, the first portion of this section 3, I think this is probably the match I want to see. We talked about this, is if it happens, is Mladenovic Garcia. And the last time we chatted with Mladenovic she was still in a huge losing streak. But she ended that in St. Petersburg, made the final, 3-0 in Fed Cup this week. Decent opening match against Peng Shuai. Then we'll face either Elena Vestina or I believe it's Anna Blinkova in the second round, should she get past Peng Shuai.
Yeah.
And then potentially a Garcia clash in the third round, but then Garcia has Sibilkova or Pavlyuchenkova in round 2, though.
Yeah, I think this is the most open of the sections. To be fair, obviously you got Garcia, who hasn't been in incredible form this year. You know, obviously did reach the fourth round in Australia, but didn't always play too well. Was blasted off court by Keys in that fourth round match. And obviously Garbine Muguruza, obviously a few doubts about her, has been injured for a lot of this season. Obviously lost early in Melbourne as well. So there's certainly opportunities for someone, maybe like Mladenovic, who's playing well again, seemingly. Obviously it's hard to tell after, but the signs are encouraging. Then obviously Elise Mertens, the Australian Open semi-finalist here as well. I think she's one to look out for, see how much she can build on that run.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about Muguruza. She's like the big wild card in this section. I mean, if she's still hurt, then, I mean, we have Duan Ying, Ons Jabeur, someone like Kirstea could pop a surprise, or Tamea Babos, the Taiwan champion, and so someone could be a surprise if Muguruza is not healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be interesting. Like I said, obviously you got a couple of dangerous players in this section. Obviously that first round match between Sibilkova and Pavlyuchenkova for the chance to face Garcia is a big one. Yeah, obviously Timea Babos faces Mertens in the first round. She won the title in Taipei last week. So yeah, and obviously the likes of Sorana Cestella here as well. So certainly, I think obviously the WTA to extent was always fairly open, but I think compared to the other sections, this is the one where there's more likely to be more surprises.
Yeah, and then now the last section. So we have obviously Simona Halep and then 50 Karolina Pliskova here. I think this is the section I'm more intrigued in. So we have Pliskova, who will face the winner of Annette Kontaveit or Alizé Cornet. So Kontaveit, obviously, we saw what she could do in Australia. Very powerful game. And then Cornet, still mystery on her drugs test. So don't know what's going on there. But we've seen her beat Serena, so can pose trouble for power players. And then a lot of names, recognizable names here that could do something. Yeah, CC Bellis qualified, Daria Kasatkina, Madison Keys, Anastasia Sevastova, Donna Vekic, Naomi Osaka, Katerina Siniakova, Zhang Shui, Katerina Makarova. So I think though Halep is here, probably the favorite to get out, I do see one of these names. I did mention a lot of names, but one of these one of these ladies to go on probably a surprise run.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, obviously Madison Keys being there is an interesting one. Obviously didn't do Fed Cup this weekend for America, but obviously a good Australian Open after disappointing run of form following her US Open run. So that's resurgent, fairly dangerous. Got to fancy her in the first round against Wang. Obviously, Bellis or Kasatkina in the round after that. Potential dangers of another match she should win. And it could be Pliskova after that, what would be a really, obviously, big hitting encounter.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting. I think, obviously, Halep will be looking to bounce back after, obviously, her disappointment in the Australian Open final. And I wouldn't say like an easy draw, but I don't think it's a massively tough draw either.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she should be McCarthy or Zhang in the first round. Potentially Sevastova after that. Well, actually, any of those four, Sevastova or Vekic, and then Osaka versus Siniakova, that's an interesting part. All four of them, can potentially be troublesome, but, their matches, the Romanians should be winning.
Yeah, I totally agree. And so we'll post our picks later on our Twitter, which is @OnTheLinePod. So you guys can take a little glimpse of what we think will go down in Doha. So now we have our first 500 in the ATP side. And so, yeah, Jo-Wilfried Tsonga, we said defending champion, with drew left hamstring injury. But look who we have at the number 1 seed. Roger Federer going for the chance at world number 1 with a semifinal showing. And I mean, Ruben Bell. Yep, go.
No, you tell me no. Yeah, you go.
Oh
Sorry.
yeah, Ruben Bellman's in his opener. Hachanov and Cole Schreiber potentially next. So I draw pretty nice for Federer to get to the semis. Stan could be his potential biggest roadblock, but I think Federer should see himself at world number one by the end of the tournament.
I think so. Barring any injuries or major upsets, I think he'll probably win the title as well. To be fair, hard to see many dangers here. I mean, obviously, Wawrinka in the quarterfinal, that's obviously a mouthful one in terms of it being the match before world number one, but obviously Wawrinka's still working his way back. Not convincing tennis yet in any of his two tournaments. So, excuse me. Yeah, I think this Federer returns to world number one.
Yeah, and then continuing, Sasha Zverev, David Ferrer. That is I know for like we said, for us on the decline, it was still a mouth-watering clash between those two. And then I think Zverev, we didn't pod last week, but he got through two very tough Davis Cup ties against De Minaur and Kyrgios. I think there was a lot of growing there for the young man.
Yeah, the one winning against Kyrgios was his first top 50 win in a best of 5 match, which is absolutely crazy. If he's off, Ferrer's the type of opponent who will still punish him. But yeah, I think he should have a good week, Zverev. Indoor, I think he can play fairly well. So obviously one is a tie. I think one Montpellier or Marseille last year indoors.
Yeah, he was defending champion in Montpellier. So
Aston just obviously other nice players, obviously Goffin's here. Goffin pair in the first round, that could be an interesting one. That's Thomas Berdych after better Australian Open. Priel in action again against Rublev. That could be good. And obviously Grigor Dimitrov in action as well. So yeah, it's quite a nice field there. And obviously topped off by the fact Federer is there, but it would have been a good, strong field anyway without that.
Yeah. I mean, you did mention some matchups. Gasquet, Herbert, they just played earlier this week. We have, Misha Zverev looking to end his rut versus Berdych, who looked good for most of Australia until he ran into Federer. Goffin here, Puig, Rublev, that'll be another good one. Then Sagita Dimitrov, I think that'll be it's kind of lesser scale, but it'll still be entertaining, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, Sagita had a great season last year. And I know I was looking ahead. I know he played last week as well. I'm not sure how he did. But yeah, he's someone who could potentially trouble Dimitrov if Dimitrov's not playing well, which he didn't always do at the Australian Open. So could be maybe an upset there. I was still back Dimitrov to win though.
Yeah, likewise. All right. So yeah, Rotterdam, very strong field, but we do expect Federer to not escape, but to end up as world number one starting next Monday. I mean, bar, some kind of like Donskoy upset like happened. I believe it was Dubai last year, right? Dubai,
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, bar something like that. So I think Federer should end up as world number one. So now we have two 50s, and one will be on clay, and we all know who loves clay. Okay, Nadal loves clay, but we all know who else loves clay. Dominic Thiem, top seed in Buenos Aires, and I mean Horacio Zeballos could be or a qualifier, could be his first match, but I do think Thiem is going to be the heavy favorite to take the title.
Yeah, he's the defending champion, so obviously I think there's a little bit of pressure on him because he hasn't.
Oh no, Dolgopolov is the defending champion.
Oh no, so yeah, he's a defending champion next week.
Oh, in Rio, okay.
Yeah, so but it's coming up to around a year for him having won a title, so I think there's a bit of pressure. Oh yeah, I can see Dolgopolov now. That was my mistake. I mean, he's not playing. Yeah, I think Thiem has to be the favourite. I mean, there's quite a few dangers in there. See, Fognini's always unpredictable. Verdasco, potential quarter-final opponent for him. Konya Buster, I think, needs to start picking up some form again. Did okay at the Australian Open, but aside from that, hasn't been great since the US Open last year. Obviously, Australian Open semi-finalist Carl Edmund, who starts against Quito champion Roberto Cabrera Buena.
Yeah, special exemption for the Quito champion.
Interesting one, yeah. There's Diego Schwartzman as well. Obviously, good Australian Open, reached the fourth round.
Yeah, little man.
Pushed Rafa, good on clay as well. Clay's his favourite surface.
Yeah.
He's an interesting one to watch this week. And obviously, Quito runner-up Alba Ramos Venegas is the third seed.
Yeah, and not a bad job for him, Vesely or Bedene to start. So could see another good run for the Spaniard. And you talked about Monfils earlier this pod, and not the best matchup for him on clay, getting Pablo Cuevas to start things off.
On paper, no, but Cuevas has been out of form himself recently. Maybe clay is where he'll pick it up.
Yeah.
He didn't. But considering the past seasons he had before that, I don't think he had a great clay court season last year, particularly. So I think it's not an ideal start, but I think it's one Monfils will have to believe he can win if he's back, if he's recovered from his injury.
You know what the injury was that he picked up this week?
I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I think I saw somewhere it might have been a hip injury.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure though, so could have been something else. Maybe a ham.
Yeah. Looks like Sandgren crashed out in qualifying. So
yeah, lost heavily 1 and 2, I think.
I mean, Americans never good on clay, so kind of not surprising there that there are no Americans because all the Americans are in New York, baby. And so yeah, an American loaded draw in the inaugural New York Open, which will be played in Uniondale, Long Island, New York. Top seed Kevin Anderson, second seed Sam Querrey, third seed John Isner, fourth seed Adrian Manarino. But I think we talked about we're gonna looking forward to some of these young guys. I mean, Mackie McDonald or Mackenzie McDonald. I know John McEnroe calls him Mackie. I don't know why. Mackenzie McDonald, former NCAA singles champion, pushed Dimitrov to 5, 8-6 in Australia. Then we have Australian Open Boys Junior champion Sebastian Korda, who's under the American flag, unlike Papa Peter, who is Czech. But yes, and the young guys in the top half of the draw, the more experienced players, bar Jared Donaldson, in the bottom half. I mean, what do you expect from this inaugural event?
It's got interesting field. I mean, obviously, as obviously got Kaina Shikori making his ATP return as well. Obviously, done a couple of challenges, won one of them. Just to see what he can do. Potential quarterfinal clash against Isner. But yeah, I see a lot of interesting matches. TFO versus Korda's a big one. There's going to be Korda's ATP debut. Ryan Harrison versus Young. So 2 fairly interesting All-American clashes going on. And I think in terms of making the tournament a success, I think having an American going deep, the list semi-finals, final would be great. And obviously, I think there's potential for that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, plenty of Americans in this draw. I mean, there's no shortage of them, but could be seeing the likes of Stevie Johnson maybe getting his season kick-started with a good run. I mean, Manarino would be his potential quarterfinal opponent, but Manarino did play this week, right? Yeah, this past.
Yeah, he lost early on. I think in Quito, I think.
Oh yeah, so I mean, but still to be traveling. So I mean, but still could be an interesting matchup there. Harrison and Young. Harrison looked good in Australia, challenged Cilic a bit, so I do fancy him to potentially to beat Donald Young and then probably take out Donaldson or Karlovic, but probably the best American shot would have to go to Sam Querrey. And I know Isner is the third seed and probably has a slightly nicer job, but Sam Querrey has better all-around tools.
I'm going to disagree with you. I think Isner's more likely to do well. I think Querrey's been in great form of late. I think Isner You know, obviously, it's a good opening draw. Obviously, Nishikori is dangerous, but when Nishikori is not at his best, you know, this the biggest seed on this half is the top seed Kevin Anderson. He hasn't been in great form since the US Open. He got off to a good start this year, but then obviously fell to Kyle Edmund in the opening round at the Australian Open. So yeah, I think if it's going to be an American winning, it's probably going to be Isner. There's other opportunities, but I think Isner's got a good in with a shout this week and a good one.
Fair enough argument. All right, so yes, that wraps up the On the Line podcast. But before we go, Oliver, where can we find you on Twitter?
You can find me at Oliver DJ 1998.
Yes, you can find me, Noel, at Not First Noel. Like we mentioned earlier, you can find the podcast Twitter at On the Line Pod, and we will be posting on SoundCloud. I believe it will be tomorrow, which will be Monday. So hope you all have a very good day, and most importantly, Oliver, get better.
Thank you. Yeah.